This is the Philippines. It's an archipelago of about 7,000 plus 7,300 islands. Um, right here, it's at the edge of Southeast Asia, but it connects to the Indonesian archipelago. This is Indonesia, and this is Borneo. I am talking about Manila Intramuros, which is a fortified Spanish walled city built in 1572. This is the last of a chain of fortified cities that start from Spain in the Canary Islands, actually, go throughout all of Latin America and ends here. This is the end of the line. The Philippines was the colony farthest from Madrid so far that we were actually a province of Mexico. So again, that adds another layer of influence to the Philippines because Philippine Spanish is basically Mexican Spanish. We share a lot of food and culture and language with Mexico. And Intramuros of Manila is the national symbol. It is known all over the country as the center of Spanish influence. Except that Intramuros was totally wiped out in World War II, except for parts of the walls and one church. And the people who lived in Intramuros after the war did not want to come and live back there. So they moved to other parts of the city, abandoned their homes, abandoned their properties. So there was a loss of a lot of architecture. There was a loss of most of the architectural heritage of Intramuros. And more than that, its urbanscape and its heritage and its identity was never recovered. So it's like heritage of memory more because you no longer have the physical aspects to tie your heritage to. Although the walls of Intramuros, which are here, the walls of Intramuros were rebuilt after between 1970 and 1990. And then there's one church that survived World War II. It happens to be the oldest stone church in the Philippines, which is inscribed in the World Heritage List. So all of Intramuros is actually protected by the Philippine government, and it's also officially the buffer zone for this property, this World Heritage property. Imelda Marcos' pet project, when she was high and mighty and in the height of her power, was to restore Intramuros. So there was a presidential decree that protected it. It put in an administrator. It removed the control of the city of Manila from Intramuros. So Intramuros was this little island, except that it did not cut all the ties with the city of Manila. So Intramuros does not receive any tax money. But it has to rely on Manila, the city of Manila, for all of its services, meaning garbage, street repair, police protection, et cetera, et cetera. It's a very tenuous relationship, to say the least. But actually, when it was Imelda Marcos' time, there was a lot of money that came Intramuros. Some of Intramuros was rebuilt. All of this was rebuilt by Imelda Marcos. And she wanted to see Intramuros becoming something like Williamsburg, where everything was totally restored faithfully. Everybody walked around in old clothes, and you had blacksmiths and bakers and weavers, etc. You know how that goes. It would have been good. So they decreed actually building guidelines for any new building that came up in Intramuros to follow the old style and do it authentically, which was, as we'll see later, actually a deterrent to the development of Intramuros because most of Intramuros properties belongs privately, and these people did not have the money nor did they have the interest to rebuild in a proper way. After Marcos was changed, Intramuros floated for a while without anybody in charge until it was given to the Department of Tourism. So now the de facto head of Intramuros is the Secretary of Tourism. There's an Intramuros administrator who answers to him. So anything that is done in Intramuros today has to be done under the guise of tourism, so we get money from the Department of Tourism. Intramuros today, as you can see, this is Intramuros. The green band around it used to be the Intramuros moat. Early in the American era of 1901, 1905, it was thought that this moat bred mosquitoes and brought malaria, so it was filled in. It is now Manila's only inner city 18-hole golf course. But it is also one of the largest green areas in Manila that's existing today. And all of Manila is all around Intramuros. This is the most. This is the business sector, business section of Manila. Here is the docks, the ports. So you can imagine the enormous development pressure that is happening in Intramuros because all these people here have nowhere to expand, and here's Intramuros basically empty, just waiting. So that puts more pressure on the architectural guidelines because many people want the guidelines removed so they can build their 50-story skyscrapers on these narrow cobblestone streets, which will never work. Here are the numbers on Intramuros. It is 62 hectares or around 155 acres. As you can see from here, the blue is for institutional. So it's mostly institutional, meaning there's about 7 or 8 universities in Intramuros. There's a little bit of commercial here, the red, and there's a lot of abandoned properties which have been taken over by informal settlers, which is the politically correct term for squatters. So you have a lot of poverty in Intramuros. The squatters have taken over the empty lots. So you have poor sanitation, you have very poor safety, you can get mugged there, and so on. And all throughout, until very recently, each Intramuros administrator has been wanting to just kick them all out. One actually tried to do that, to free some government-owned Intramuros properties, and it turned very, very ugly, very, very bloody, and the exercise did not come on favorably. There's no population to speak of in Intramuros. You have registered residents, only 2,500. You have 35,000 students, but they're not residents. They come in the morning and they go home at night. So there's nobody in Intramuros at night. And then you have the informal settlers. 8,000 is the official registered number, but they really number about 20 to 30,000. So what to do with them? There is a new Intramuros master plan whose conceptual stage was just approved by the Secretary of Tourism maybe 2 weeks ago. This plan wants to bring life back into Intramuros. Since it's for the Department of Tourism, it has to be done through tourism. But what we wanted to do is bring it in through commerce to having people live in Intramuros permanently again, to make Intramuros the cultural capital of the Philippines, which it is in principle, but not in actuality. And the most important thing about this plan is it recognizes the informal settlers as the de facto stakeholders of Intramuros. So Intramuros partnered with GK. GK stands for Gawad Kalinga, which is Tagalog for Working for Hope. This is an internationally awarded NGO that relocates informal settlers, not only participates with them in building new homes, it gives them values training, it sets them up in community businesses, etc. So Intramuros has partnered with them because the idea is that the Intramuros informal settlers are now going to be given all the values, education, etc., and all the opportunities to remain in Intramuros and to use heritage as the impetus for social development and economic development for themselves. So the program has started through GHF, and we hope that in a few years they are going to be the heritage champions of Intramuros. The concept is to consolidate the squatters. If, let's say, one block of land belongs to 5 people, 5 individual owners, it's totally occupied by them. These 5 owners are going to be encouraged to form a corporation, give up 20% of their land to build housing for the squatters, and free up, say, 75% of the land, which is now open for new development. What will happen there is that there will be houses built like this in the Intramuros style, which will have in the bottom shared areas for community use. There will be a daycare center, school, clinic, community offices, etc. Some rental spaces for the community to rent out and have income from. And the upper floors will have either small apartments or dormitories, which will house all of the squatters from that area. The Intramuros community is now seen to provide all of the labor and workforce for the new industry and business and residents who we want to move into Intramuros. So they will not only be employed in tourism-related work, they can become blue-collar workers, white-collar workers, secretaries, clerks, accountants, carpenters, etc., for all of the new activity that's going to happen within Intramuros. Global Heritage funded a small project, which is called the Streetscape Project, which was meant to document what was existing on the street today. It also made suggestions on what the street could look like. But the most important thing this did was it brought together all sectors of Intramuros who had no idea about heritage, who had no idea that they were living in a special place. So architecture students were brought in from a Manila university. Representatives from the squatter areas had come. Whoever wanted to join could join. The local government representatives joined. Some Intramuros people joined. Some GK personnel joined. And we formed them into teams, taught them how to photograph, measure, draw, etc., all the buildings along 4 selected streets. And the architecture students were given orders to ask the local residents what it was like to live in Intramuros, find out what were their aspirations, et cetera, et cetera. So there was a lot of information that was gathered from that project, and that information became the base information for the new master plan that is in process. The challenges now for the new Intramuros are, what do you do to revive heritage that's physically not there? We are not reviving an old city like we saw happening in China and Pingyao. Pingyao happens to have the bones there. This has no more bones. So how do you do it? So this is the question I pose to everyone. It is no longer feasible or affordable to restore the old city word for word. We have to find another way to encourage people to build in an easier way, maybe a more modern way, but maintain the memory and the flavor and the feeling of Intramuros. So that is pushing the heritage envelope to another direction, and that direction we hope to find through this project. So thank you very much.